Before you step into everything this day will bring, pause for a moment and ask yourself one question. What if the first thing you did this morning could place your entire day under God's protection? What if before the stress, the responsibilities, and the unexpected challenges arrive, you could declare a promise that surrounds your life with peace and security? Today we're going to pray the powerful words of Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms, a passage that has strengthened believers for generations and reminds us that those who dwell in the presence of the Most High are covered by His protection. So wherever you are right now, whether you just woke up, you're preparing for work, or you're simply seeking a moment of peace, take a deep breath, quiet your heart, and let this morning prayer invite God's presence, peace, and protection over every step you take today. There is something powerful about the way you begin your day before the emails start coming in, before the responsibilities begin stacking up, before the world starts demanding your attention. There is a quiet moment where you have the opportunity to set the spiritual direction of your entire day. Many people wake up and immediately check their phone, immediately check the news, immediately start worrying about what could go wrong. But when you begin your morning by declaring the promises of Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms, you are doing something different. You are placing your day under the covering of God before anything else has the chance to shape your mindset. You see, the world will always try to fill your mind with fear before faith has a chance to speak. It will remind you of the problems waiting for you at work. It will remind you of the bills that still need to be paid. It will remind you of the uncertainty that surrounds tomorrow. But when you begin your day by praying the promises of Psalm 91, you are making a bold spiritual decision. You are saying, before fear gets a voice in my life today, faith will speak first. That is powerful because what speaks first often sets the tone for everything that follows. Psalm 91 begins with a declaration that changes the atmosphere around your life. It reminds us that the one who dwells in the secret place of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Think about that for a moment. That means when you intentionally come before God in the morning, you are not just saying a routine prayer, you are stepping into a place of divine covering. You are reminding your soul that your safety does not come from circumstances, it comes from God. Your peace does not come from having everything figured out, it comes from knowing the one who holds everything together. And when you start your day like that, something begins to shift inside of you. Suddenly, the problems that looked overwhelming begin to look smaller. The situations that made you anxious begin to lose their power over your mind, not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because your perspective has changed. When you declare that God is your refuge and your fortress, you are reminding yourself that you are not walking into the day alone. You are walking into it with the protection, the presence, and the power of God surrounding you. The truth is, every day carries unknown moments. There are conversations you have not had yet, challenges you have not faced yet, and situations you cannot predict. But God already sees every moment of the day before you ever step into it. When you pray Psalm 91 in the morning, you are trusting that the God who already knows what is ahead is also the God who is able to protect you through it. That kind of trust changes the way you walk through your day. You stop moving in anxiety and you begin moving in confidence. Some people think prayer is just something believers do out of habit, but when you truly understand the promises in Psalm 91, you realize that prayer is an act of positioning. You are positioning your heart under God's authority, you are positioning your thoughts under God's truth, and you are positioning your life under God's protection. That is why starting the day with prayer is not a small decision, it is a powerful spiritual strategy. When you declare these words in the morning, you are essentially reminding heaven and reminding your own heart who your protector is. You are saying, God, today you are my refuge. Today you are my fortress. Today I trust you with every step I take. And that declaration builds a different kind of confidence inside of you, not the kind of confidence that comes from having control over everything, but the kind of confidence that comes from knowing the one who is in control of everything. Imagine walking through your day knowing that God's presence is surrounding you. Imagine facing challenges with the quiet assurance that you are not exposed, you are covered. Imagine carrying a peace that the world cannot explain because it is rooted in a promise that cannot be broken. That is the power of beginning your morning with Psalm 91. Because when the day starts with God, fear loses its authority, anxiety loses its voice, and your heart remembers exactly where your protection comes from. Life has a way of bringing moments you didn't plan for. You can wake up with peace in your heart, a clear plan for the day, and within a few hours something unexpected happens. Difficult conversation, a stressful situation, a problem that seems bigger than your strength. And in those moments, the question is not whether challenges will come, because they will. The real question is where your trust is anchored when they do. This is exactly why the promises in Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms matter so much for your everyday life. Because Psalm 91 does not pretend that trouble never appears. It does not say that believers will never face uncertainty or pressure. Instead, it teaches something deeper. It reminds us that even when challenges show up, our security is not found in controlling circumstances. It is found in trusting God as our refuge, and that kind of trust changes the way you move through every situation. You see, fear always tries to convince you that you are exposed. It whispers thoughts like, what if this situation goes wrong? What if you are not strong enough to handle this? What if everything falls apart? Fear paints pictures of disaster before anything has even happened, but faith does something different. Faith looks at the same situation and says, God is still my shelter, God is still my defender, God is still the one who covers my life. When you begin to trust God as your refuge, you stop looking at problems as if they have the final authority over your life. You start seeing them through a different perspective. The challenge may still be real, the pressure may still be present, but your confidence is no longer built on how strong you are, it is built on how faithful God is, and that shift is powerful because it removes the weight of trying to control everything. There are moments during the day when anxiety can quietly try to take control of your thoughts. Maybe it's when you hear unexpected news. Maybe it's when something at work doesn't go the way you hoped. Maybe it's when a situation in your family feels uncertain. Those are the moments where your heart has to make a decision. Will you allow fear to guide your thinking, or will you remember the refuge you declared in prayer earlier that morning? Psalm 91 reminds us that God is not just a distant observer watching our struggles from far away. He is described as a refuge and a fortress. Think about that image for a moment. A refuge is a place you run to when storms come. A fortress is a place of protection where the enemy cannot easily reach you. That means God's presence is not fragile or temporary. It is strong, secure, and reliable. When you truly believe that, something changes in your mindset. Instead of reacting to every challenge with panic, you begin responding with prayer. Instead of letting worry dominate your thoughts, you bring those thoughts back to the truth you declared at the start of your day. You remind yourself that the same God who covered your morning is still covering your afternoon and your evening. And here is something important to understand. Trusting God does not mean pretending problems don't exist. Trusting God means believing that His power is greater than the problems you face. It means believing that His protection is stronger than the threats around you. It means believing that even when situations look uncertain, God's presence remains constant. Sometimes the most powerful act of faith you can take during a difficult moment is simply reminding your soul where your refuge is. When stress rises, you pause and remember the promise. When fear tries to take over, you speak truth over your thoughts. When uncertainty appears, you lean deeper into the confidence that God is your shelter. Because the reality is that every day brings situations you cannot fully control, but your peace was never meant to come from control. Your peace comes from trust, and the more you trust God as your refuge, the less power fear has to dominate your life. That is why praying Psalm 91 in the morning is so powerful. It prepares your heart before the day even begins. It plants a truth in your spirit that you can return to whenever challenges appear. It reminds you that you are not navigating life without protection. You are walking under the covering of a faithful God. And when you truly trust that God is your refuge, you stop living as if every problem has the power to shake you, because you know the one who covers your life is greater than anything you will face today. There is something powerful that happens when the words of faith move from being something you only read to something you boldly declare. Too many people treat Scripture like quiet information, something they absorb silently and keep to themselves. But there is a different kind of spiritual authority that rises when the promises of God leave the page and come out of your mouth. When you begin to speak the truth found in Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms over your life and over the people you love, you are doing more than repeating verses. You are aligning your words with heaven's promises. Think about how often people speak fear without even realizing it. Someone wakes up and says, "Today is going to be stressful." They look at their schedule and say, "I don't know how I'm going to get through this." They think about the future and say, "Something bad might happen." Without noticing it, they are filling the atmosphere. of their day with words shaped by worry. Words have influence. Words shape how you see your life. Words shape what you expect from the day ahead. That's why speaking the promises of God is so powerful. It replaces the language of fear with the language of faith. When you begin to declare Psalm 91 over your life, you are reminding your heart that your protection does not depend on luck, chance, or perfect circumstances. It depends on the faithfulness of God. When you speak those promises, you are saying, God, you are my refuge, you are my fortress, you are the one I trust today, and those words begin to shift something inside of you. Suddenly, the day is no longer defined by uncertainty. It becomes anchored in God's promise. But it doesn't stop with you. One of the most powerful things you can do is speak those promises over your family, over your children, over your home, over the people who mean the most to you, because love naturally wants protection for the people it cares about. Every parent wants their children to be safe. Every spouse wants their partner to walk in peace. Every family hopes for covering and security, and while you cannot control every situation they will encounter, you can cover them in prayer and declare God's promises over their lives. Imagine starting the morning by speaking blessing and protection over your household. Imagine declaring that God's presence surrounds your home. Imagine praying that every person who walks out of that door is covered by the peace and protection of the Almighty. That kind of prayer does something powerful in the spiritual atmosphere of your life. It invites God into the center of your day before the world ever tries to pull your attention away. And here is something important to understand. When you speak God's promises, you are not trying to convince God to act. God is already faithful. God is already powerful. God is already aware of every detail of your life. Speaking the promise is not about informing God. It is about reminding your own heart of what is already true. It is about bringing your thoughts back into alignment with the truth of who God is. There will be moments when fear tries to sneak into your mind during the day. Maybe you hear news that makes you uneasy. Maybe someone around you begins talking about everything that could go wrong. Those are the moments when you return to the promises you declared earlier. Instead of letting anxiety speak the loudest voice in your mind, you repeat the truth that you already planted in your spirit. You say, God is my refuge. You say, God is my fortress. You say, God is covering my life and my family today. Those words are not empty, they are declarations of faith, and faith has a way of changing the way you see every situation in front of you. Sometimes people underestimate the power of simple daily obedience. They look for dramatic moments where everything suddenly changes overnight, but often the greatest spiritual strength is built through small, consistent actions like waking up each morning and speaking the promises of God over your life, day after day. Those words shape your mindset day after day. They strengthen your trust. Day after day, they remind your soul that you are not living unprotected. And when those promises become part of your daily rhythm, something beautiful begins to happen. Fear loses its influence, anxiety loses its grip, and your heart begins to rest in the quiet confidence that the God who watches over you is the same God who watches over the people you love. Because when you boldly speak God's promises over your life and your family, you are filling your day with faith before fear ever has a chance to speak. When you begin your day in prayer, when you declare the promises of Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms, and when you speak those words of protection over your life and your family, something important happens in your spirit, but the journey doesn't end when the prayer finishes. The purpose of that moment with God in the morning is not just to give you a few minutes of peace before the day begins. It is meant to give you the confidence to walk through the entire day knowing that God's protection is still with you. Prayer is not just a starting point. It is the foundation you carry with you into every moment that follows. Too often people pray in the morning but spend the rest of the day forgetting what they prayed. They ask God for peace and then they spend hours worrying about things they cannot control. They ask God for protection and then they walk through the day as if they are completely exposed to every possible danger. But when you truly understand the promise of Psalm 91, you begin to live differently. You stop acting like someone who is vulnerable and unprotected, and you begin walking like someone who is covered by the presence of God. Think about how different your day feels when confidence replaces fear. When you believe God is watching over you, you stop approaching life with constant anxiety. You stop assuming that every situation will end in disaster. Instead, you begin to carry a quiet assurance that no matter what happens, God is still with you. That confidence changes the way you respond to challenges. It changes the way you speak during stressful moments. It even changes the way you treat the people around you. When a problem appears during the day, fear immediately tries to take control of your thoughts. It whispers questions like, "What if this goes wrong?" Or "What if you can't handle this?" But when you remember the prayer you started your day with, you answer those thoughts with faith. You remind yourself that the same God who covered your morning is still covering your afternoon. The same God who heard your prayer at sunrise is still present when the sun begins to set. Psalm 91 speaks about God commanding his angels concerning those who trust him. That promise reminds us that God's protection is not limited to a moment of prayer, it extends into the moments we cannot see. When you walk into a place, God is already there. When you face a challenge, God is already aware of it. When something unexpected tries to disrupt your peace, God's presence is already surrounding you. That truth should change the way you walk through the day. Instead of moving through life with hesitation and fear, you begin to move with a calm kind of boldness, not arrogance, not pride, but confidence rooted in trust. You understand that your life is not being guided by random chance. It is being held by a faithful God who cares deeply about every detail of your journey. And that confidence doesn't mean problems will never appear. Challenges may still come, unexpected moments may still arise, but when you walk with the assurance of God's protection, those challenges no longer have the power to shake your foundation. They may test your patience, they may require your strength, but they cannot remove the covering that God has placed over your life. Sometimes the most powerful testimony a believer can carry is the way they move through a difficult situation with peace. People around you may notice something different about the way you respond when stress rises. They may wonder why you are not panicking when circumstances look uncertain. They may ask how you can remain calm in moments where others feel overwhelmed, and the answer is simple: you started your day remembering who your protector is. Walking through the day with confidence in God's protection means you are constantly returning your thoughts to the truth you declared in prayer. When fear tries to speak, faith answers. When anxiety tries to grow, trust reminds your heart who God is, and little by little, that daily practice begins to transform your mindset. Your life stops being controlled by worry. Your thoughts stop being dominated by worst-case scenarios. Your heart begins to settle into the steady rhythm of trusting God with every step you take. And the more you practice that kind of trust, the more natural it becomes to live with peace, even in the middle of uncertainty. Because when you start the day with God, trust him through every challenge, speak his promises over your life, and carry that faith into every moment that follows, you begin to walk through the world with the unshakable confidence that God's protection is surrounding you wherever you go. If this prayer spoke to your heart today, take a moment right now to pause and invite God into the rest of your day. Let the promises of Psalm 91 from the book of Psalms stay alive in your spirit as you move forward. And if you believe that God is your refuge and protector today, type Amen in the comments as a declaration of faith. Share this prayer with someone in your life who may need encouragement and protection today, because you never know how one prayer can strengthen someone's heart. And if you want to continue starting your mornings with faith, peace, and powerful prayers like this, make sure you subscribe and join this growing community that is choosing to begin every day under the covering of God.